I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Having this Black Country Blokes tuna fat with me, Kev Dillon, Craig Pinches, and we've got a very special guest on tonight, Nicki Cadman. Nicki Cadman is Lee Cadman's wife. Now, those who've been with us since the beginning, the second episode we released was called Two Sides of Every Coin. Me having a disability from the ages of 3 years old, and always thinking about myself and how it affected my life. And it wasn't until I became a father when I started thinking about how it affected my mum and dad. And then Lee and Nicki having two beautiful children and the third child having a rare illness. So we thought we'd get together how it affected the person with the disability and the parents. So we've asked Nicki to come on to talk about her experiences, because they say there's no love like a mother's love. So thank you very much, Nicki, for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
So would you like to first tell us about how it all came about? Because I remember, like, she had a bronchitis. I can never say it.
Yeah. So when Carla was 8 weeks old, she had bronchitis, was taken into hospital, was fine. The night before that happened, though, she'd had a bath, and was like shivering uncontrollably. Just thought she was cold, so wrapped her up, never thought anything of it. Ended up going back into hospital because of a bronchiolitis. The same thing happened again when she was in hospital. And a nurse said to me, "Have you seen this happen before?" And I said, "Well, yeah, it happened last night. I just thought she was cold." All of a sudden, alarm bells go off. Several nurses, doctors come running in. They start taking bloods, lumbar punctures, and then that's when they told us she'd had a febrile convulsion, which is a seizure due to temperature related. She had several other little things after that, other little types of seizures. Didn't really come anything of it, and they said it was just going to be febrile convulsions and she'd grow out of it. These, however, continued, and then she started having tonic-clonic seizures, which are your ones that you see on TV when the whole body is shaking. But there were little triggers, so like she'd go in the bath or just getting ready for the bath, she'd start having a seizure. These played out like 5-10 minutes at a time, and then eventually they got longer and longer and longer. We had our first longest one was 1 hour and 20 minutes long. There's a thing on Facebook, like a little picture, and it says you never know how long a seizure is until you watch your child having one and you're counting it. And it's hard to describe. It's the longest 30 seconds of your life. You try sitting there and count 30 seconds, but when it seem to go very quickly, and it's like you've counted and counted and counted, and you're waiting for this time to pass. Anyway, she ended up being put into an induced coma, and we were sent to Birmingham Children's Hospital, who sent us for tests. And 6 months later, a week before her first birthday, she was diagnosed with Dravet syndrome, which is a rare and life-limiting form of epilepsy.
That's crazy. How old was she again? Sorry.
She was a week before her first birthday. She was diagnosed. Her first seizure was at 8 weeks old.
Wow.
8 weeks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. God. I mean, like when... Sorry, carry on. You carry on, sorry.
With Dravet syndrome, it's like a ticking time bomb. Something has to trigger it. There's a big hype about vaccinations cause it. It doesn't cause it, it just triggers whatever is inside that bomb to go off. Callers happened to be having bronchiolitis. That triggered her Dravet syndrome story to start.
Which is something that most young ones have, don't they? Because my son had it, I think. He had it, and it was hard for me to see him in the hospital. And he was, I can't remember how old he was now, but he was older than 8 weeks anyway. And older than one. I think he was a couple of years old. And to see him in the hospital, and he had like a tube in his nose and whatever else, it was my firstborn. It was heartbreaking for me. So I wouldn't even want to try and imagine what you guys go through. With that, like you say, 30 seconds, that's a very long time when you feel that it's never going to end.
Yeah. And you have to, like nowadays, we have to give rescue medication to stop a seizure if it gets to 5 minutes. That 5 minutes is such a long time. And then you have to phone an ambulance. And then you're waiting for that ambulance to arrive, and you get to 10 minutes and you're like, where on earth are they? Because the longer it prolongs, you're going towards the next step of going into a coma again. And we did that not long ago, a couple of months ago. She'd had a tonic-clonic over and over and over again during the night, which we hadn't seen for about 3 years. And we were blue lighted to Russell's Hall. And it was scary because you kind of get used to it in a way. And paramedics used to say, how are you so calm? And you say, well, you just get on with it, because I've got to relay all that information about her to them. If I'm a mess, they can't treat her because I can't tell them what they need to know.
It's amazing how strong we can be at the right time, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know,
you've got to be.
When we're like, if someone was to sit there, like me and Craig are both daddies ourselves, and you think to yourself, I don't know if I could be that calm in that time. But it's amazing how you step up to it when you've got to, isn't it?
Yeah, you've got no choice. She's going to rely on us for the rest of her life. And unfortunately, with Dravet syndrome, there is no prognosis. With Calla, we live every day as if it was her last day. Sorry.
That's all right.
No.
It's hard. So we just enjoy it while we can.
And that's what you've got to do, isn't it? Lee's often said, he goes, the one thing that he wishes he'd had more of is time, like this particular time when we're all in together.
Well,
and I think as well, sorry, I think Lee's mentioned before, I think on the first one he came on, about how you feel the brunt of it as well, through not only the situation you're going through with your daughter, but you have other children as well. And obviously she requires a lot of attention, and you having to have to be there. And how, I can't remember Lee's words, and I don't want to put anything on the plate that we didn't say, but how tough it is to divide your time up and to focus a lot of time on your one daughter because she needs it. It takes away, you feel it takes away from the other children as well.
Yeah, they've both struggle with anxiety massively. Several times they've woken up and we haven't been here because Calla's been poorly in the night, whether it's to do with a chest infection or a seizure, and we have to just go and drop everything. You can't say goodbye. And they've seen her at her worst. They both have mentors at school to help deal with their anxiety levels. There was a stage where Lily, our eldest daughter, really struggled going to school last year, and she cried all the time. And it's heartbreaking because it's put on them, and you can't give them the time that you need. So it is really hard because you need to give your time to Calla, and they're really, really understanding that if she needs this doing or this doing, they've got to wait their turn. And I don't want that for them, but unfortunately that's how life is in our house.
Well, when I lost my vision, Nick, at 3, my brother was 13, and a few years ago I said to him, I went, Rich, were you ever jealous? Because I was always in the hospital, Mum was always there, and Dad had come straight from work. And I said, did it affect you? And he goes, Kev, the only focus I had was making sure my little brother was all right. Because you expect them to be jealous and resentful, but family's not like that. And they realise when one needs you, you step up to the plate. And that's what love is.
Yeah.
And like we've like, because you've had a rigmarole trying to get her into a special needs school, haven't you?
Yeah, just a bit. Yeah, we ended up going to court because we couldn't get a place for her at the special needs school we wanted. Basically, our local council mucked up, lost her place somewhere floating around in the sky. But we fought and fought because we'd done everything that we could to make sure that she went to the best school because she deserved to. And we've won our appeal, and she now attends the most amazing special needs school ever. She's got fantastic staff who look after her. And it's not just a job, they really, really care for her. So I will forever be grateful to them for what they do, and her previous nursery where she went as well.
Because like Lee was telling me about how many other poor souls fell through the cracks. Do you remember the numbers?
It was something, God, could be between 50 and 60.
But these aren't the kids who can just go to Crestwood or Cayford, or because they are so, like me and my eyes, when I was at primary school, there was only one at school that dealt with visually impaired pupils. But when you've seriously got problems and everything, you can't just fall into mainstream schools, can you?
No. I mean, I was fortunate that before I had Calla, I worked in mainstream primary school, and I worked with many special needs children. So I knew that there was no way Calla could go to mainstream school. The bridge would have got wider and wider. As it is now, she's mentally between an 8 and 12 month old. Although she loves socially being around other children, educationally and academically, it just wouldn't have worked for her. And I don't care that she's not meeting goals. I'm just happy. I want her to enjoy her life. I don't care if she doesn't learn the alphabet or can't tell a colour from a shape. I don't care. As long as she's happy and healthy, that's all that matters to us. But for her to be in a special school that we know caters for her needs, and I know she's safe there, that just makes a whole lot of difference. It means I'm now able to go and find work again after being out in it for so long, and I know that she's going to be fine there.
What's her general spirit? I mean, I understand that obviously you guys and like your thoughts on it, but what's Calla's general spirit and her how she feels?
She's as happy as Larry. She's just started a new medication called Epidiolex. It's just been licensed for Dravet syndrome. So it's a form of cannabis oil. There's only her syndrome and another syndrome that are licensed to use it. And she's been on it about 3 months now. And she's got her sparkle back. A lot of medications drug you up to the eyeballs, and there's a lot of side effects. But this medication is so alert. Calla's, a lot of people know Calla's fed through her stomach. She's got a peg in her stomach, and she's fed into her intestines. Because she's got an unsafe swallow. So any form of liquids goes into her chest, into her lungs. And she can eat a bit of pureed food, but during this lockdown, she's eating absolutely everything. She's eating without the house at home, and she actually eats better than the other two do. But yeah, she loves lockdown. I think she's enjoying her time out, playing in her bedroom, getting used to routines at home, spending time with us, I think.
Because two things I want to come back to there, Nick. Because like you're saying, she's got the peg. Because when she was being fed orally, it was going down the wrong pipe, was it? And it was going to her lungs.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah. So she was initially fed like you, Craig, with your son. Had a tube, an NG tube through a nose. But because this is like a long permanent thing, we went down the route of having a peg into her stomach. But we
Yeah.
didn't realise that she was silently aspirating. So stuff, food, liquid was coming back up her food pipe and then going back into her windpipe and going into her lungs all the time. So she was having
Wow.
back-to-back chest infections, and we couldn't get to the bottom of it until June 2018. She was really, really poorly. We were actually at Centre Parks on a drive-by weekend, where the charity organises a whole weekend at Centre Parks. Loads of families with the same syndrome come, get together, do loads of activities. You get to meet up. And unfortunately, she fell really poorly that weekend. We got taken to Mansfield Hospital, where she had got severe sepsis from having a bad chest infection, was very, very quickly put into a coma again. We'd also found out that her kidneys had failed. So we spent a few weeks in Nottingham PICU, and she had kidney dialysis. We were told several times, they said, we're going to try and do everything we can for her, but we don't know if what we can do is good enough. And it was hard. It's hard on seeing Lee try and be strong, and hold it together, because he feels he's the head of the family. That's his job to do. And he'll admit to it now. He never likes talking about his feelings to me ever. But the one time she wouldn't come out of her coma once they stopped the sedation medication, and they said to us they didn't know whether she was brain damaged from sepsis, and she had to have MRI scans and stuff. And I remember it so clearly when they told us that she wasn't brain damaged. She was just being a bit slow in waking up. I've never seen such relief on Lee's face, and that was the first time he cried and opened up to us. Cal kind of got better, and we were discharged to come back to Russell's Hall Hospital where she could recover. Took her home that night. Fortunately, she was sick, and she aspirated her sick, and that went into her lungs. And the next day, she was put back into a coma. And we were taken to Stoke, the ICU, and she spent another 3 weeks in hospital. Again, touch and go again. Kidneys starting to play up again, not knowing whether she was going to make it or not. In total, I think we were in hospital for 9 weeks. She came out. Well, no, sorry, I do apologise. We'll backtrack. Went and they discharged us back to Russell's Hall, and that's where she was meant to recover after a chest infection. And then they said she was having problems with pain in her stomach. Now, a lot of children with Dravet syndrome have very high pain thresholds. So Hella doesn't cry. She never has done. And she cried. And it's heartbreaking to see a child cry that never cries. So we knew something was seriously wrong. And it turned out she'd got pancreatitis necrosis, which is the worst type of pancreatitis you can get. So she was taken to BCH, Birmingham Children's Hospital, to the liver unit. It's been ages there, and they said they were going to put this tube into her intestine to let her pancreas recover. And they said that she'd never been able to bring food up because she'd have this tube going into her intestine. So we asked if that could be a permanent fixture, which they agreed to. And touch wood, she hasn't had a chest infection since. Her lungs were amazing. She was on oxygen full time. She's not on oxygen anymore. And she's alive and soul of a party. Bless her.
Well, you say that, Nick. The other month, when Kate and Jasmine come down to see the horses.
Yeah.
Well, Jasmine's got she's been fascinated with wheelchairs ever since. And we got her a dolly, and it's got a wheelchair, and she says, like, colour roses, and she loves it. And I thought, that's what we should be doing, instead of, like, me and Liv talked about this a lot on this show. When you see someone in a wheelchair, oh, don't look, just go. Kids are curious, they're inquisitive, so go over and say, it's still a little girl or a little boy. You haven't got to be frightened of them. Go over and say hello.
Yeah. And society is very wrong nowadays. I have had so many people look at colour when we've parked in a disabled spot. We've got a blue badge, she's entitled to it, and look at us as if to say, what are you doing in that space? And being in a lift is the worst place, because people don't know where to look. They can't get away from you. I've heard parents going, like, when their little kids are saying, Mummy, what's wrong with that little girl? And the parents going, shh, don't say anything. I'm like, I don't mind asking questions. I'd rather them ask questions.
Where do you think that stems from? Do you think that's like political correctness, or like some kind of self-guilt that you're going through that situation and they're not? Where do you think that stems from? Because even my son will do it, you know, being 6, 7, 8 years of age. They do it. It's a natural thing. Curiosity is a natural thing for any children. And I think because it seems such a fragile subject, and it is, I don't think a lot of parents know how to explain it without, you know. And do you think that's like political correctness, or do you think that's just ill-informed, or what do you think?
I don't know. I think it's a bit of both. I mean, to be honest, elderly people are the worst for it, and I'm not being discriminative or anything, but I've had elderly people tell me I'm not supposed to park in disabled spots, which really bugs the hell out of me, because Bella is entitled to it. I think sometimes parents might be embarrassed what their children would say if they were to say the wrong thing, and it might offend me or Lee or the kids or whatever. So I think it's a bit of both. I don't know, but anybody's free to ask us about that.
It is one of them things. It is one of them things, isn't it? The less stigma that surrounds it, obviously, the easier it's going to be for everyone. We do have a question off Steve Ansell. I'm going to get it up now, so give me just 1 second. It basically said...
Oh, sorry, 2 seconds, Craig. Alvin, your Ansell. Looking forward to having you on Monday. Carry on, Craig, sorry.
Yeah, mate, I think he says that now she's at school, or when she's at school, do you find that takes the pressure off you and Lee, or do you find yourself worried about her more? I think, without getting it up, because I can't see it, that was the general direction of the question.
I guess it has, in a way. It's given me a bit of me time. I'm mummy, I'm a wife, but I'm a carer as well. And I'm going to be a carer for a very, very long time. And like many other special needs parents and carers, you don't get time to be you very often. So it is nice to have that bit of me time. Of course, we worry about it all the time. I count down the hours till I go and pick her up. As far as Lee's concerned, at the moment he's our financial person who we lean on. So it would be nice for me to be able to go back to work and help him provide for us, because I think that's what he feels his role is to do, and it's not fair. But yeah, we do worry about it all the time. You can't not with a child who's medically complex like she is.
I think, like, me and Lee have talked a lot about it, and guilt comes in, doesn't it? Because, as you say, as a mother, carer, you need that bit of switch off time. You need that bit where you can get to Mary Hill. You can do whatever. You can just sit down on the settee and go, thank goodness. But with that comes the guilt. Like being a parent with a well child, you're always feeling guilty, aren't you? Should I be doing this?
Yeah.
Should I be doing that? But if I send it to school, I know Lee always says, I feel guilty because I want to be with my daughter, but at the same time, I've got to work. And do you suffer with that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel guilty being at home and Lee working, but it's a hard job in itself being a parent to a special needs child. It's mentally and physically draining. I am absolutely pooped. I have to get up during the night to put Callus feed on, and we're very light sleepers. We've got a monitor in our bedroom, and the slightest noise, you're awake and you're looking to make sure she's okay. So yeah, it's a hard job to have, and it's one that you never expect that when you're pregnant, you expect everything to be fine and dandy, and then to have a child like Calla, it shatters your world because you dream of having a certain child, but we wouldn't have her any other way. She brings so much joy to so many people. She's got the most infectious smile and a little giggle. And she just lights up everybody's life. Everybody that knows her. Calla's got a name at school. Everybody knows who Calla Rose is. That's how known she is.
As it it's probably going to sound like a really strange question now, but going through what you're going through with Calla, you have gone through and you're going through, has it taught you anything about yourself?
I guess so. I mean, I've had my own mental health issues. I've been on medication, especially through the beginning of Calla's journey. My dad unfortunately passed away very, very suddenly when Calla was on the children's ward, actually. That was the worst time of my life, never knowing whether to be down in Reese's with my dad or whether to be with your child who's poorly upstairs. That was very difficult. I guess it's taught me that you just got to be strong. I don't know. It's very difficult.
We tip our hat to you. We tip our hat to anyone like yourselves, because in my eyes, life is tough enough, and everyone says it. Life is tough enough. Even stuff I feel I'll go through is tough, and it shows me how resilient I can be. So, like the thing that you and Lee has to go through on a day-to-day basis, you know, the uncertainty or the stress, the mither, you know, I tip my hat to you, because that takes a very special kind of person to be able to go through that with a child, you know, with anybody, but with a child, you know, we tip our hat to you, because we think it's amazing how resilient you can actually be.
You've got to be. You're their voice at the end of the day, and everything that we do, is for her, because she can't stand up for herself. We've got to be her voice, so we've got to do everything that we can to ensure that she lives the best life that she can do.
You know, people within the Tourette syndrome circle, like you said, you went on that residential. Have they been a big help?
Yeah, the Gervais community are fantastic. They're a wealth of knowledge, and it's a complete little family. That's why the get-togethers at the weekends are so important, because you speak to each other on Facebook or you'll message each other, but you don't actually see them in person because they're dotted all around the UK. So they're a good group of friends to have, because they know what you're going through, and it's nice to be able to talk to somebody who understands. Because I've got a great group of friends, some amazing best friends, but they don't know what you're going through. and I think you need to have somebody that's got a special needs child to understand exactly how you're feeling.
And how did you manage to find them? Was it just on a forum? Just in case anyone out there's listening to this and they've got same things. How would you find one of these groups, Nick?
A lot of the times it's on forums on Facebook. The actual Dravet syndrome website guided us to the Facebook page. But there are special needs Facebook pages where people can search if their child has got a specific condition and they need help or advice. They can just ask people. There's so many people out there who are willing to help and listen.
And I think what we've got to do sometimes is have the strength to understand that we need the help. Instead of struggling on your own and suffering in silence, have the strength to accept the help.
And that's what I don't do. I have a lot of friends that say to me, if you need help, don't forget to ask us. Or if like the kids are sick, if you need me, ask me. But you don't want to burden your problems onto them. So I kind of like deal with it myself, because that's what I feel like I have to do. So I guess accepting help off people is a good thing, something that I should learn to do.
I think a lot of people should learn how to do it, Nick, and it's so hard because if I accept help, am I weak or will they think I'm weak?
Yeah.
No, you're a human being and we all need help.
Yeah.
We do. Like from meeting Lee, because I only met Lee, I've never met you in person myself, have I? And I only met Lee from the start of this podcast. And like from the time I first met him, months ago, it's literally been months ago, to how he is now and where he is now, it's something that I'm proud of myself, let alone all of us, because I feel that from meeting him for the first time in that room, I knew nothing about him, nothing about your story, nothing about your child, nothing at all. And I can see how like this podcast is focused, and that shows the importance of sharing things, helping people, but also accepting help as well. And I'm proud of Lee for that myself, and I've literally only known him months since the start of this, and I think you both do a job that no parent would ever want to do.
Yeah, it's the Black Country Blokes has helped Lee massively. He'll admit it. He doesn't talk. There's been times where he'll just take himself off to his room, and it could be 2 or 3 days before he'll decide to speak to us, and I'd let him get on with it now. But the Black Country Blokes has helped him massively, and he'll sit and talk to us now, where before he never would. So I think he's learned to accept that you do need to help and you do need to talk. And having someone to listen is so important for mental health.
Well, this is why we started, because so many blokes, especially, and women, I understand, but mainly blokes, you don't always go to your partner, the person you've decided to spend your life with, and of all the people there you fell in love, they're often the hardest person to talk to. I used to think it's easier to go on holiday, meet a bloke, confess my soul, because I'm going to see him again. So we wanted to get people together so we can all talk and say, you know what, you get scared, or you've got a poorly child, or you've got depression. So I think if we can talk about it and realise we're not alone, the world isn't such a lonely place.
Yeah, you're very right.
100%.
But what we're going to do, unless there's anything else you want to say, Nicki, before we finish?
I don't think so. Just thank you for having us on.
Well, have a little think. I'm just going to tell everyone about next week's shows. So while I'm having a rattle, have a think about if there's any quotes or sayings or things that have got you through this. So while I'm talking, just have a think. Next week, gang, it is Mental Health Awareness Week. So we're going to be going live from Monday to Friday next week. On Monday, 6:30. The rest of the week is 6 o'clock. Monday, we're talking to Steve Hansel, who's previously been on the show. He lost his brother at a very young age and has got numerous problems, and seeing how isolation's affected him. On Tuesday, we've got the Black Country Women's Aid, who works with men and women who have been abused, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, modern day slavery. On Wednesday, we've got Mick Maguire, who's a great coach from the Jewellery Quarter in Birmingham. Thursday, Marcus Leonard from Mental Health, Black Country, and Ian, who's coming on Friday to talk about mental health first aid and a free course that he's going to be doing over Zoom. So please stay with us all next week and come on the journey. So Nick, have you thought of any little quotes or sayings?
Calla has a quote on her wheelchair, and it is, "You never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have."
Remarkable.
Perfect.
Well, gang, until next week, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.